Good morning, afternoon or evening, ladies and gentlemen, Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, to what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily market update. And I don't even know where to begin this one. We had the Fed Chair Powell in front of Congress yesterday. There was some interesting insight that came out of that. I think some negative, some positive. Like he said, there was no reason for QE, quantitative easing. We're still enduring quantitative tightening in the form of the Fed, allowing their balance sheet to roll up and not adding to it in the form of QE. And he essentially said that he sees no reason to imply QE whilst interest rates are above that zero mark. Now, the good news in that is they're planning on getting interest rates to zero. The bad news, of course, is that QE doesn't come until then. But there are various forms of QE, perhaps, if not directly, indirectly. The reverse repo account has been drained significantly, certainly since the debt ceiling was upped. There's been a suspension of that. We could go and do a whole video on that entirely. And I will be doing a video on the kind of macroeconomic environment. And I really like Julian Bittle's scenario in regards to what took place with Trump the last time he got into power in January 2017 and what he did with the dollar to ultimately increase economic activity. I think a similar thing is coming. And I think they're going to use interest rates as a tool of that. And that's going to be a great macro backdrop that sees the crypto markets do very well. So we've got a lot of clips to play. We're going to really be starting things off with some of what was said by Jerome Powell yesterday. His outlining speech, what he said on QE, what he said on interest rates. He reiterated the kind of hawkish stance on not bringing them down too suddenly. However, I think we're massively now underpricing. We've been overpricing or over-expecting interest rates. That was a big theme in 2024. I think we went into this year certainly overpricing again, and then he's kind of talked the markets down. But that's his job to do that. A monetary policy is actually verbally what they transmit. And he's not going to over-talk or be overly dovish, certainly when inflation, and we're getting CPI numbers today, is still elevated and they have that 2% mandate still in line. So we'll also be looking at what he said about CBDCs and the treatment of crypto-related companies as it comes to them being debanked by the likes of the Federal Reserve. And then we'll look at what came out of the crypto hearing titled The Golden Age of Digital Assets and essentially a path forwards. There's always disappointment around these events, but you've got to remember who's giving these hearings. It's very boring, it's very formal. However, the fact that we're being represented in the manner that we are is huge. I think one major topic was, of course, stablecoins. I've spoke to you guys previously about the role I think the likes of XRP and XLM are going to play in that arena. And we're already seeing that. And actually, I believe that stablecoins are the future of money. To relate that to Jerome Powell saying we're not going to allow CBDCs, something like what Ripple are doing, or stablecoins generally are CBDCs. They're just not issued by the central bank. It's all about this kind of digital surveillance that's upon us. And then there's something interesting about meme coins. The Hoktua coin was mentioned. Essentially, they were talking about there's no intrinsic value of meme coins. And then Hester Peirce, who, of course, is the head of the crypto task force, an SEC commissioner, has actually also spoken about meme coins and says that they don't really fall in the SEC's jurisdiction. Then we'll finish things off with a little bit of price action. Hell of a lot to get into, guys. When is there not? But my job's very easy on the back end of all of that. Let's maybe start off with some things happening today. We've got CPI. That's going to be out by the time you guys are watching. The expectations are that it's maintained stagnant year over year at 2.9%. Month on month, there's a slight decline in CPI. But an increase in regards to core CPI. Then we have, again, Jerome Powell testifying. We may look to stream that at 3 p.m. UK time. This is UK time, so what's that going to be? 8, 9, 10 EST. AM, of course, we're talking PM here in the UK. And then we actually have the likes of Trump speaking and an FOMC member speaking later on today. So there's a hell of a lot going on, and of course there was yesterday. And I think a good place for me to start is with what Jerome Powell said in his opening speech that we're going to go ahead and dive into now. We've got a lot of clips to play, sort of unveiling or revealing what was some of the key things that were said yesterday, and then we'll finish things off once we've gone through all the clips and some of the revelations that were given to us yesterday with a little bit of price action. I still think there's this beautiful technical picture being painted for the crypto space that ultimately sees this industry do very well. And I think I really will look to get that video out on the kind of macro environment and what I think Trump's going to do for the world from an economic perspective, with the US being the kind of trendsetter or the largest pool of liquidity. Let's dive into Jerome Powell's opening statement.
Our policy stance now significantly less restrictive than it had been, and the economy remaining strong, we do not need to be in a hurry to adjust our policy stance. We know that reducing policy restraint too fast or too much could hinder progress on inflation. At the same time, reducing policy restraint too slowly or too little could unduly weaken economic activity and employment. In considering the extent and timing of additional adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the FOMC will assess incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. As the economy evolves, we will adjust our policy stance in a manner that best promotes our maximum employment and price stability goals. If the economy remains strong and inflation does not continue to move sustainably toward 2%, we can maintain policy restraint for longer. If the labor market were to weaken unexpectedly or inflation were to fall more quickly than anticipated, we can ease policy accordingly. We are attentive to the risks on both sides of our dual mandate, and policy is well positioned to deal with the risks and uncertainties that we face.
So I think a flexible Fed is what we're going to call them at this point. And I think they are going to have pressure put on them, just like there was in regards to the dollar. The dollar is a great bargaining tool for Trump, and I think he is going to deliberately weaken it to encourage economic growth, just like he did in 2017, or began to do in 2017, January, when he got inaugurated last. And ultimately, they're going to levy the monetary policy regime to do that. I think if you look at the 10-year yields, the dollar to Dixie moves very much in tangent with, which fundamentally makes a lot of sense. That's now coming to the downside, and I think leading the direction that Dixie's going to go in. And today we've got that economic data that's going to support or not support it. But they seem a little bit more sort of flexible. I think actually we're underpricing now interest rates generally. Going into 2024, we said you guys are massively overshooting how many rate cuts are coming. Now we think people are undershooting it because of the kind of slap in the face that we've seen over the past sort of couple of years. However, they were going into this year looking at one rate cut for the whole of the year, 25 basis points, so 0.25%. And now we're pricing in two on the forward curve. I actually think you're going to get significantly more than that. And I think that's going to be mandated or at least influenced by Trump and his regime. Powell also said would use quantitative easing only when interest rates are at zero. So the good and bad news in this is that they're likely going to bring rates to zero. I believe they're going to try and get them as close to zero as possible. Whether they wait for that 2% target or not is another question. And they're not going to do any quantitative easing until then. That was certainly what Jerome Powell signaled. But a lot could change then. There could be events that take place. Certainly there's a lot we can drive from the reverse repo right now, which has been drained, something we'll be keeping an eye on. And certainly the bond market is going to need reviving, I think, at some point. But there's a whole... I think all of this is very much beyond the scope of the video. I think what perhaps the markets are still not enjoying is the uncertainty. Yes, we can lower rates, we can up, we're not up them, we can maintain them restrictive, but it's all dependent on economic data. But broadly, I think I look to the Dixie for more of an insight. The Dixie's just been in this big channel since 2008. This was the last time Trump got inaugurated, and he weakened the dollar to stimulate economic growth. We're at a similar conjunction today, and potentially on the smaller time frames, I do have a bit of a technical pattern. I tend to gloss over this stuff. I look at it a lot more with Patreons to sort of align the bigger picture that we're looking at. But the 2-year, let's get off meeting, let's go to watch list. Sorry, the 10-year is already starting to slip, and I think this is going to continue to slip, and this could be just a retaliative move, signaling weakening in sort of monetary policy, a weakening of the dollar, and of course we know, let's just put Bitcoin on here. The kind of, they've been moving in sync recently, but there is a kind of counter trend going back. We're not going to sort of dive into that just now. Let's look at what Trump had to say in regards to CBDCs, something that we're all kind of petrified of, because this is part of that kind of digital financial surveillance, which is coming, and they're going to do it through stablecoins. Stablecoins are CBDCs. They're just not issued by a central bank. Don't be kidded on that. And they're doing the same thing that they did in 29 was it? Or I can't quite remember the date. I think it was earlier than that. 1909 was when you maybe had the banking crisis. with Knickerbocker Bank, Heinz, that I think was engineered, and then it was really a kind of plot to centralize banking and put it into the control of a very, the international banking cartel. And what they did was they caused a problem like they did in 2008, and then they implemented the solution, which they initially did in the Aldrich Bill, and then it was the Federal Reserve Act. And they play the left and right hand are the same hand of they're all part of the body of the greater puppet and manipulator that manipulates the world. Let's maybe leave that there. But I see a similar thing happening with what's taking place with the crypto space in regards to how we ended up with a central bank and an entire monetary shift. I think the same thing is coming. Let's now play a clip of Jerome Powell talking about CBDCs, and then we'll proceed.
Is the idea that we would even look like China in any way. So can I have your commitment that as long as you're the chairman of the Federal Reserve System, that we will never have a central bank digital currency?
Yes.
Thank you for that. I think that's extremely important. It makes me very happy to hear you say that.
There's something good to come out of things. I don't think what he said previously on sort of interest rates and monetary policy was particularly bad. He was very much grilled about the treatment of the cryptocurrency space, specifically in relation to the debanking that's taken place. Let's listen to what he had to say to that as a response.
I can't make an open-ended commitment to remove anybody, but I will tell you that I am struck, and my colleagues and I are struck by the growing number of cases of what appears to be debanking, and we're determined to take a fresh look at that. In fact, I took the thing that you showed during the debanking hearing. When I saw that, we're now taking that out of the manual. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time's up.
Big fan of Lummis. We saw Warren just do what Warren does yesterday. Yeah, we'll leave that. Let's not be too harsh about anybody. So that was the sort of hearing that took place for Jerome Powell. He's testifying again today. We may stream that, we may not, we'll see. Very interesting, everything that's kind of happening right now. Again, I think I need to get that video out on the sort of what I see coming as far as economic drivers as it relates to monetary policy. So that all took place. There were some real gems in there. We played what I thought were the key takeaways and certainly clipped them. And then we had the sort of crypto conference, or not conference, the crypto hearing on the digital age. And it sounded great, but it was boring as hell. It's a formality. And they've got to be very reserved. I think what we all want is for them to come out and say, yeah, we're going to do this on XRP, we're going to do this on XLM, we're going to do this on HBAR, we're going to tokenize it, whatever. They can't do that, probably because some of them likely have positions or affiliates with those companies, which we've seen all over the place. However, what they did broadly do was outline the digital transformation that's coming, and actually these cryptos, perhaps they didn't mention them specifically, but are the rails in which that digital transformation is going to run upon. One big topic, and the US is going to champion this because it's going to enable them globally, certainly maintain the dollar as a world reserve currency. It's not, Bitcoin will never usurp it. Bitcoin has been hijacked, is of course stablecoins. So let's look at what was said on stablecoins, and then there was something interesting on meme coins. Hester Peirce finishes on this, and then we'll wrap the video up with a little bit of price action and a look at the markets.
So Yahim, quick question for you. And this kind of doubles back to the U.S. financial system's dominance. What's your view in terms of stable coins really being an additive towards not just U.S. market dominance, but also U.S. dollar dominance on the world stage?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Congressman. There's a wide variety of use cases that have been proven out, some that have not yet been proven out. It's very clear that stable coins are going to improve efficiency in cross-border remittance, and I think we've heard that from the panel today. It's going to be really important that the U.S. leads in terms of putting rules in place. Other jurisdictions have done this, not just for stable coins, but for centralized markets. They go hand in hand. If you look at the top 4% of assets on our platform, it represents over 60% of the volume, right? And 2 of those are stable coins. If you look at the top 10%, right, that represents almost 80 to 90%. So again, let's focus on passing rules for the most important pieces of the market today.
There are companies out there that are essentially enabling stable coins. They like I say, they mention things that are happening within the industry, but don't mention specific cryptos. Just do a little bit of digging and you'll see what cryptos are involved. Mainly the ISO cryptos. The sort of financial system uses standards, ISO standards. They're all moving to ISO 20022, and there's cryptos that are compliant with that, and they all seem to pop up all over the place consistently in regards to working with the financial institutions to innovate the entire system. So it is very interesting. There was also something interesting on meme coins that we're going to go ahead and play.
Coins. I'm going to focus on the silly end, the meme coins. It's funny, we have all these rules of decorum, and it is hard to talk about meme coins with the language that the industry uses to talk about them. I see you all smiling. We'll refer to them as fecal coins for the purpose of this hearing. Is it safe to say from your smiles that you generally share the view of the industry that this is not something that has any innate value, these meme coins?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Have any of you invested in, and again, this starts to get a little bit colorful language, the Hawk Tuah Girls coin? Have any of you invested in that? No? Okay.
They're fan clubs is really what they are.
Yeah, and I say that to raise a more serious point that, as several of my colleagues have noted, the President of the United States issued something that has no innate value. It doesn't have the value that maybe a Bible or a pair of sneakers or a steak or a bottle of water has. It has no innate value.
Interesting, because what we're now going to go on to is Hester Peirce talking about meme coins and the fact that the SEC doesn't think they fall under its jurisdictions, meaning they're not commodities. And then if you look at Dogecoin being approved for an ETF, there's also a Trump coin being filed, a bonk coin. There's a high likelihood actually that they will be approved because they aren't under any sort of regulatory scrutiny, and I think that's been reiterated. And he just mentioned the fact they have no intrinsic value and perhaps the dangers of that. I personally don't think Trump should have launched a meme coin. I think he should have done something significantly different. Also, watch what World Liberty are doing, the sort of Trump family coin, if you will. They're buying a lot of Ethereum. They bought Ondo recently. Obviously, they've got Chainlink, et cetera, et cetera. Let's look at what Hester Peirce has to say about shit coins or fecal coins, and then we'll wrap things up with some price action.
The President and First Lady launching their own meme coins make your job more difficult?
I think one of the things we're trying to do is look at categories of tokens that are out there. There are lots of people who are introducing meme coins right now. Facts and circumstances matter. We always have to look at the facts and circumstances. But many of the meme coins that are out there probably do not have a home as in the SEC under our current set of regulations. And so again, if that's something that Congress wants to address, they can do that. Maybe that's something the CFTC wants to address. But many of those, I think, probably are not within our jurisdiction.
Meme coins are not securities. And I think meme coins are a big distraction from the real innovation that's going on here, which is the formation of the internet of value, but more broadly distributed ledgers have a far broader application. I've been threatening to write a book now for a hell of a long time. I'm currently doing it. It's a bit of a mammoth task just because of how much there is to cover in regards to how do I transmute what's in my head in regards to the true digital innovation that distributed ledgers are far beyond Bitcoin. The massive use case that they're going to enable, which is the new internet of value, which is going to have quadrillions on it. All the value in the current world is going to be onboarded on chain. It's going to bring us towards this kind of one world financial system. But actually, distributed ledgers go far beyond that. They're going to affect social systems. The internet as we know it will be upgraded via it. And the digital sort of world that we live in will also be on chain. You've got identity systems. You've got AI systems. You've got supply chain systems, you've got government systems that are all going to be ran on the blockchains or the distributed ledgers, because we know blockchains not every distributed ledger is a blockchain, and actually there's reasons why you might want to use a DAG or something like that. In regards to the price, guys, we did this exercise just the other day where we looked at something like NVIDIA or Vanex Semiconductors, and it's very common you get a break at a period of rest, but then continuation in a broader uptrend. You've literally just taken all-time highs. You've not done this just to fade them. When you look at the total market caps, they look spectacular, and we are expecting continuation. We've just got to get through this period of congestion. I think people always look towards the events that take place to essentially sort of pump the markets, and they always kind of, I think, undershoot. And that's just part of the game. You know, certainly looking at congressmen and a congressional hearing to pump the market, yeah, there might be gems of wisdom there, but generally these things are quite boring and cumbersome and formalities. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Just take a look behind the hood. You'll see what's truly going on with this industry, and it is going to be a fundamental technology in the world that we are moving towards. It's already increasingly becoming one in the same way the internet or, you know, engines or anything has been. And there's a great opportunity in that, certainly if you're in the right cryptos. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Have a wonderful day wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.